Sawubani. Dumela. 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 Sawubona. Sawubona. Abusheni. Nda. Hello. Hello, Tobela Dumela and Daming. Welcome to my channel again. It's your boy Mo J. Nakimo Bedi, Kisitolo Sada Bedi. So I speak Bedi. Now, today we are speaking about heritage. Stay tuned into this video as we celebrate Heritage Day through the art of storytelling. Oman, in this concrete jungle of conspiracy and propaganda. I am an African. You are an African. The spirit of Haremba should live on. Ubuntu, umuntu, umuntu ngabantu.
Make some noise! Adidi! So when I was a little boy, we had this roster for, dishes. So everyone's name in the family had to do dishes at some point. And there was little 6 siblings, so everyone had the chance. And I used to think, but I'm too young to do the dishes, So my father one day heard me say this, and he calls on me, he goes, "Come here. Mfanam, indlovu ayisindwa umbogo wayo." And then he went on to teach me that, as little elephants grow, they have, a trunk that's perfectly suited for them. And the bigger they get, the bigger the trunk gets. And at no stage is that trunk ever too heavy for an elephant. When I'm for now, so this became the mantra that we grew up with. This was the thing, that everything that comes is just enough for you and you can handle it. The very definition of being a man in our household. So one day I grew up and I started my own family. And that was my trunk. And it was never heavy for me. One day he died. And I adopted his responsibilities. Maringlof. This is a story of what happens when one day the trunk gets a little bit too heavy for you. So it started when I had my own family and we had a baby coming on the way, but I was just unhappy in my job and I just want to do something different. So I spoke to my wife and we agreed, and when I say agreed, I agreed, right, that I will start this company. So I started off my new company in construction, and in 18 months I had made the most money I've ever made in my life. And very soon after that, lost it all. So when that happens, all the responsibilities you have don't go away. Every month, my mother still expects some money from me to keep the household going. Every month, my sisters still expect the school fees. Every month, my household still expects to eat. And yet, I no longer have a form of income. But instead, I'd inherited more problems. The company I'd started, well, those workers also expect their final payments. Eventually, I find a way, we sell some stuff off and we start paying off those little bit that we can. And, it's not the full amount, but it's something. And they stop coming and banging on the door every day. And I'm trying to find a job, but I don't have a sense. The business I've just done has wiped out everything that I have. Suddenly, to go to an interview is not as easy as getting into a car and going to the interview. Now I have to ask my partner for petrol money to get to this interview. It got worse later on when they repossessed the car So now I had to ask her for her car and the petrol money to go in it. The sort of women, hey. So things started becoming tough in the household. I went from a point of being the breadwinner to the bread receiver, where every single time I had to justify why I need 50 rand to get into a taxi because the car was just no more, just so I can get across Johannesburg into Pretoria to go for an interview. I'd come back home with rings around my armpits because the taxi put you down there and you have to walk all the way to that interview. And every day I would feel that pressure, that Indlov, I see the why. And yet it's just heavy. So little by little, as I'm becoming more and more dependent, my ego starts to take a knock. And every time I have to ask for something, I'm just so embarrassed. I'm just, it's not what a man does. Every time my mother calls, I start not wanting to answer that phone because I know there's money required. And I've loaned as much as I can from friends and they cannot borrow me anymore. I'm sinking deeper and deeper into debt and there's just no way out. There's just no way to handle this. So I do what I do when I am stressed. My ex-wife used to call me an ostrich. I take my head and I plow it into the sand and pretend that nothing exists. I shut myself down. I stop answering texts. I stop answering calls. I just stopped engaging with the outside world. She would wake up in the morning and go to work. I'll wake up in the morning and close the curtains and just sleep all day. And every time the phone rang, I just get that pit and a knot inside me. And I just know it's just more bad news until I just shut off the phone and didn't want to answer it anymore. One day, I thought to myself, my father lied to me. It's not that the trunk cannot be handled. I'm not an elephant. So I decided, you know what? I have so many expectations on me from layers and layers, from siblings to parents to my partner. I just can't handle it anymore. And there's just one thing left to do. I need to run away. I just need to go. But the thought of that is embarrassing. How do you run away as a grown man? How do you get away as a grown man? There's nowhere to go. Until the only option that was left for me was in the boot of her car, yellow, white in color, the thing we used to tow the car with. On the very last days, I remember putting a box right in the middle of our garage, reaching out to the rafter that supported, tying a knot into it, making a loop. It's not right. Undo it. Make it again. Strength tested. Hang on to it a little bit. This can hold my weight. The only way out of this is just to simply get out of this. All of this. I remember standing on that box, knowing that they'll want to know what happened. So I climbed down again, walked into the house, took a little note of paper, and wrote a message from my daughter that's coming. Went back onto the box, put it aside. When there's nothing else to live for, sometimes you can find a glimmer of hope in the smallest of things. For me, that thing was imagining how happy they would be 2 years from now when I'm no longer the burden. Then I realized, wait a second, whoa, they're going to be happy 2 years from now without me. Then why am I hanging myself? So standing on that box, I finally decided, you know what? I died here today. I died here today, and everyone will carry on. My mother will find other ways to get the money she needs. My siblings will find other ways to study. My wife will find other ways to raise our daughter. This burden is not only mine to carry. We can share it, and when I can't, I can give to someone else for the time being while I sort myself out. You see, those words of Indlo Vaisinda Mbogowayo had led me here. And this is where it ends. And this is where I die. And I decided, when I stepped down from my box, that in my mind, the person that stood there still hangs on those rafters. And the person that stepped down carries less of the responsibility that everybody else had put on me. I made calls, I announced my situation, and lived life a little bit differently. I still get judged for it. People look at me and goes, oh, what happened to him? He's busy running after this Haditia thing instead of. And people will always have an instead of for you. What they want you to do. That person they spoke to still hangs in my garage in Springs. I'm no longer that person. I didn't hang myself that day, but for a second I almost did. And thank goodness I didn't. Because I didn't, I can now live the life I really want. I still carry some of the things that I hold, but whenever it starts to feel too heavy, I remember I'm not an elephant. And sometimes umboge are seed. And when that happens, you need others around you to help you carry it.